The Texans sure do have a lot of needs in free agency. How do they go about filling them all? Well, how about 53 targets for the Texans in free agency? Welcome into the channel. I'm Cody Stoots. Let's talk some Texans as free agency is less than 4 weeks away. March 11th is when things really kick off, and agents and free agents and teams start talking about deals and coming to agreements on deals. And we have a ton of stuff to get to. Wade through all these different names here in free agency. Hope you've been checking out the free agent of the day with Sign or Decline here on the channel. Myself and Landry Locker, who is also on YouTube here in the locker room, do a fantastic job breaking down those various free agents of the day. Already Mike Evans and Derrick Henry in the books. Those names and many more of those names will be popping up on this list. So we'll get to the comments as we go through. We'll check in after a couple of different position groups. Feel free to throw some reaction and your comments, and we'll get to as many as we can. If you're watching this after the fact, I appreciate you checking out the live stream. Sometimes we get up to these late night live streams talking Texans because I can't go to sleep. I never sleep. That's not true. I've been sleeping great. But sometimes we get these late night streams and we have a lot of fun just kicking it, talking Texans. We'll do Q&A at the end. All your questions and comments, we'll get to them as best we can. So 53 names in free agency that the Texans have got to chase. 53 names. Now, obviously, you know why I picked the number 53. That's the amount of players on a roster. That's not what this list is, though. It's not a roster of players. It's just the top 53 names amongst various positions that I believe the Texans need to be chasing. Now, do they need to sign, say, all 9 of the running backs that I put on this list? No. And do they need to sign one from every one of these positions? No. And are these the guys that are the only options at these positions? No. It's the top players that are the top 53 at the positions that I believe the Texans should chase. Here's what's not on the list, so I set your expectations correctly. Current Texans free agents. So Devin Singletary, Dalton Schultz, Jonathan Grenard, they're not on this list. This is if you don't bring those guys back, or you do bring those guys back and you're still shopping for somebody else. There's also a few positions that are not on this list. There's no special teams players on this list. 1, they're not one of the 53 best players in free agency. 2, Kaimi Fairbairn and Cam Johnston are the 2 free agents that the Texans have at kicker and punter. I want them to bring both those guys back. But there's no quarterbacks on this list. They've got 4 on the roster, all under contract for next season. And there are no offensive linemen on this list. I do not believe the Houston Texans should use free agency to fill out their offensive line. They have plenty of options. Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, Titus Howard at right tackle, Shaq Mason at right guard, Juice Scruggs at center or left guard, Kenyon Green, Kendrick Green, Jarrett Patterson, a variety of options for this team. They should not heavily emphasize or put a lot of focus on offensive line and free agency. So there are no offensive linemen on this list. There are running backs. There are wide receivers. There's a handful of tight ends, defensive linemen, linebackers, and secondary players as well. This full list is on Houston Football for all free subscribers. That's right. It's a free list with a little bit of conversation about these various positions and why these guys are on here. It's free for you on Houston Football if you want to follow along as we go through it. It's in the link there's a link to it in the description down below. Please subscribe to Houston Football. It's where I do all my writing about the Houston Texans. Comes right into your inbox each and every time I write something. So let's get to that list, and we start with the running backs. 9 running backs make the top 53 initially. Now, these are not in order of preference by any means, okay? These are not who I prefer the Texans to go after. It's just the 9 running backs that make the top 53. Everybody knows about Derrick Henry. He's a freak. Broke him down on a video on the channel with Landry Locker for our free agent of the day, sign and decline. DeAndre Swift from Philadelphia is a free agent. Tony Pollard out of Dallas is a free agent. Saquon Barkley, who is amongst many favorites here in free agency, is a free agent. Gus Edwards off of the Baltimore Ravens is set to be a free agent. Josh Jacobs from the Raiders, Zach Moss, Zach with a K, by the way, from the Indianapolis Colts. Austin Eckler, once an incredible and amazing running back, very disappointing this past season, especially if you drafted him in fantasy football. And Antonio Gibson is also a free agent. Amongst these running backs is a variety of different prices. It's also a variety of different types of runners. And there are some of these guys that I believe you would need to bring Devin Singletary back if you sign this guy, and that he would be a tandem with Devin Singletary. There are some of these guys that I believe, like, for instance, Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry, that guy would be the main running back, and maybe you don't bring back Saquon, or you don't bring back Devin Singletary, excuse me. So there's a variety of different running backs here in this list, and these are the first 9 players of the 53 that we're going to break down. And again, different price levels. Your Derrick Henry is a little bit more expensive. Your Saquon Barkley is a little bit more expensive. Different levels of wear and tear. Some of these guys are a little bit older. Some of these guys are probably looking for their first big payday or another payday. Pollard and Barkley are coming off of the franchise tag. If they hit true free agency, they're going to be looking for some big money as well. So those are the 9 running backs. So we'll get back to the list here in just a second, but I want to get to some of these comments as the loyal commenters are here live in the channel. Let's get to some of your comments here, and we can go through some of these running backs as well. Ace asks, can we get an end-of-season War Daddy update? Only had Laramie going into the season. I think we have 4 legit War Daddies. Curious on your thoughts. Ace, that's a great question, and I feel like that is a great list. We'll officially get the War Daddies sectioned out here in the next couple of days. I'm going to put a bow in that, and maybe that'll be a Houston football post. Ace, I appreciate that. Evo says, hit the like button. I would appreciate that. Brandon, for some reason, I think Nick is going to knock this season out of the park. Yes, absolutely. I've a lot of faith in Nick Caserio. Nick says, love this work, Cody. Thank you. I appreciate you tuning in. Joe says, Stoots, does this make you my Valentine's? If you want me to be your Valentine, I am. I tell you what, I got love for football and the Houston Texans and talking about them. So if you got love for that, then we both have the same Valentine. Hope everybody had a fantastic Valentine's Day. If you spent it with somebody special, congratulations. If you're looking for that somebody special, keep looking. You'll find them one day. Austin says, you're awesome. Thank you. Spencer says, build the D-line in free agency, O-line in the draft. Starts in the trenches. I like it. Brandon's dealing with a little bit of insomnia. John, I heard the Texans aren't pursuing Evans anymore. Well, he's not even a free agent yet, and it's not even free agency yet, so who knows? Hey, Cody, I got my hat earlier in the week. Thank you very much. Jim, thank you for buying a hat. We are almost out of hats. I think I am out of hats. I'll have to check the inventory, but I think I have maybe 1 left. But yeah, I might be out of hats here for Houston football hats. Don't worry, we got more hats coming on the way. Will says he loves this idea. John says, I hate Valentine's Day. Jackson likes Josh Jacobs amongst the running backs. I'm going to pull back up the running back list here. Let me scroll down here a little bit so you get all the running backs. Jackson, Josh Jacobs, I believe, is best for the price. Joe Blue says, I think Barkley gets tagged again. Sucks for him. Brandon, Saquon, and Josh are going to be out of Nick's price range and taste, in my opinion. Henry or Eckler are more likely. The big thing with Austin Eckler that I would say is I want a really good cohort, a running mate, for lack of a better term, if you will, with him. I'd love to pair him with another running back that could take some of the load off of him. Jackson doesn't like Eckler. He drops a Eckler is trash. Jacobs makes sense because of those Alabama ties. Man, they do love that Alabama heritage coming from the college ranks. Let's see if they like it coming from free agency. Brandon says, I love Jacobs. What's the price tag? Man, that's a good question. I would tell you that he's the most expensive of all of the running backs because he is hitting true free agency for the first time. And I believe the spot rack market value estimator is over $10 million. Yeah, it checks in at about 10.6 for a 4-year deal. So $10 million a year for a really good running back. That might be something that you might need to just go ahead and invest in if you're the Texans. Joe Cruz says you need 2 running backs in case either one misses time due to injury. Also remember Silk saying he liked the committee approach. That is until he realized Pierce wasn't up to the task. Yeah, man, it just feels like unless you've got a dude, just a hand it to him 30 times, throw it to him 10 times, hand it to him 20 times type of guy, you want a couple of different running backs in there. So that's the running backs. Those are the 9 running backs on this list. As you'll see here, as I go through this list on Houston football, there's 10 wide receivers on this list. I'll try to get them all in the frame here. Now, again, varying levels to these wide receivers. There's really expensive guys, like these 2 guys up at the top, that would be very, very expensive investments. Then there's fill-in guys like Curtis Samuel, Josh Reynolds, Darnell Mooney, Cedric Wilson. Now, are there more free agent wide receivers that could fit what the Texans have? Yeah, absolutely. But these are the 10 guys that I prioritized within the top 53. You see Mike Evans in here, did a video breaking him down. It'd probably be a stay away from me just due to the tremendous financial investment. I'm not sure Michael Pittman is going to hit true free agency. I feel like he might get a franchise tag. T. Higgins is a guy that potentially is a franchise tag as well. Calvin Ridley, Gabe Davis, Curtis Samuel, Josh Reynolds, Hollywood Brown. I just love the name. Can we call him H-Town Brown if they sign here? Darnell Mooney, Cedric Wilson. Wilson is an interesting one because Mike McDaniel is a guy that couldn't quite get the use out of Cedric Wilson, and they had a lot of options in Miami, but familiar with the offense, potentially you could bring him in as well. Reynolds, of course, starred for the Lions this past year. I say starred. He filled in nicely over there opposite Amon-Ra St. Brown. T. Higgins is a big investment. Never been a number 1 type of guy, or never had the option to be a number 1 because Jamar Chase came in there and took over. I don't love Gabe Davis. I know a lot of people really like Gabe Davis. I don't love Gabe Davis just because of the inconsistency and just the disappearing act that he pulls sometimes. But there's a lot worse investments that you can make. Here's the biggest thing with the wide receiver addition that you're going to make. If you're going to make a significant investment, that guy's going to play a lot. So Nico, Tank, that's your 1-2. You're really kind of looking for the 3, which disqualifies Mike Evans, maybe disqualifies Pittman and Ridley. But Tank's versatile, can play inside, outside. Nico Collins is versatile, can play inside, outside. That's something that I would prioritize if you're not going to make one of these big investments up here like Evans or Pittman. So there's a couple of different options and a wide range here when it comes to free agent wide receivers. I'll bring the list back up here in a second, but I want to get some of your thoughts here about the wide receivers. Goatson4 says Gabe Davis would be a perfect pickup. Joe Blue, I'm going to save that question for a little bit later. Jose Garcia says, I believe Curtis Samuel's an intriguing free agent. I'd like to sign him to our team. Yeah, he is he's a unique and kind of different player. He fits that inside capability that you need potentially from a guy that you're going to sign in free agency to join this wide receiver room. So I don't love Samuel, but I don't dislike the idea of adding him. He's not going to be super expensive, which is something that I think is really important about adding a 3rd, 4th type wide receiver. Bryn says, in my honest opinion, free agent wide receivers this year kind of weak. I'd go for A.J. Brown. It's 3 number 1 wide receivers for CJ. Yeah, the tough part about A.J. Brown is I don't believe he's actually available as much as he seemed discontent with the Eagles, and he costs draft picks in addition to money. So I just don't see that that big of an investment in the wide receiver room. Texas SAR says, I wouldn't sign a free agent, just draft our number 3. I sort of lean that way as well. But if one of these guys on this list pops up and he becomes an attractive option and it financially makes sense, I can certainly see the investment. Let's move on to the tight end position. Just 4 tight ends on this list. And here's what I would say about the tight end spot. I desperately want them to re-sign Dalton Schultz. I've talked about it on the channel. I've written about it. I don't believe any of these guys are close to Dalton Schultz's level of talent. Now, they're all cheaper than Dalton Schultz, but I want them to re-sign Dalton Schultz. I prefer him to be the top tight end on this team. About 3 years, $10 million a year. I want them to bring him back. I don't want to see Dalton Schultz leave. If he leaves, my preference is Hunter Henry. Similar style guy and a former big-time prospect and solid track record, second most productive free agent tight end that there is. Noah Fant's intriguing, but you're sort of betting on if Noah Fant gets it going. And I don't want to hope at the tight end spot. I'd like a proven commodity. Gerald Everett's a veteran that's been around the block a little bit, most recently played with the Chargers. He had some solid moments there with the Chargers. And then Mike Gesicki is a receiver type only guy. The inability to figure something out in the past couple of years in the NFL for Gesicki has kind of put me off of him. So I don't love this tight end group. I don't love this group of 4 guys. That's why I like Dalton Schultz being the guy that the Texans have at the top of the tight end food chain, followed by Tegan Quateriano, Brevin Jordan, maybe a rookie that they draft in the middle rounds or late rounds, and maybe another less impressive name from free agency, and maybe a guy that's a little bit cheaper there. So that's the tight ends. And again, very much want Dalton Schultz back. Let's see what you guys think about the tight end position. And if you're watching this after the fact, throw your comments down there in the comments section. Be happy to talk to you after the video is live. Texas Czar asked about Tyler Boyd for the wide receivers. Didn't make the initial 53. As guys get signed, we'll chop names off because they're signed and we'll add names on, but he didn't make the initial 53. Goats and 4 says, I agree on Schultz. You got to keep Dalton because the connection, unless CJ says otherwise. Look, Dalton Schultz, the way CJ Stroud talks about him, feels like a really integral piece of what they do, and a really exciting piece if he can get deeper into this offense and more successful, continue to get on a page with CJ. Brandon says, Hunter's the only guy I would get as well. The other Brandon, double Brandon action, double barrel Brandon action. Fant was also efficient, though. Yeah, Fant's solid. You're betting on potential, and you got to hope that he's pretty good. But ultimately, Dalton Schultz is my free agent preference. I mean, bring him back. And, watching Texans Cap, who's a good resource around this time of year, good resource all year about the free agency and the cap and how the money works. He's saying that maybe some extensions could get done from guys that have those void years at the end of their contract, so the fake years to make the money work. So Clinton asks, what do you think about Sanders out of UT is what I'm assuming you're asking. That's Jatavian Sanders. I believe he's awesome. He's a gamer. He can do a little bit of everything. He's a really good receiving threat. I would like Jatavian Sanders. The problem with him is he's probably a second-round pick. If he got to the third round, run the card up there. But I don't know if I want to spend a second-round pick on a tight end when that's kind of the position that takes the longest to figure out as a rookie. I mean, Sam Laporta is the exception, not the rule. The guy that the Lions just had that was so good this year. Most rookies take a year. So Sanders can't be the best tight end on the team. You've got to have somebody better. That's why I'm in favor of keeping Dalton Schultz. Can you have a show with BK? I miss him calling the media. Maybe we'll talk about UT prospects with BK before this free agency run is over. Maybe when draft season gets here, we'll talk UT stuff with BK. Let's just make sure we don't make Tank Dell goal line block again. Yeah, okay. Don't do that. Stoots at tight end. They'd be sunk. I'd get CJ killed trying to go out there and block. That's what I always wanted to play when I just thought I was going to play football. And they're like, go be a defensive end. I was like, okay. And then I was like, forget this. I'm going to go wrestle. So They didn't need me rumbling, stumbling up the middle and not getting the ball. Dalton. We need reliability. Yep, absolutely. JR asks, what's your realistic dream scenario? Stick around, JR. I'll get to it. Let's see. One more here. Brevin Jordan could have easily taken the easy route to the sideline instead he fought back, turned on the burners, took it all away. I love seeing this at the second tight end. Yeah, as part of the tight end room, I like what Brevin Jordan brings to the table. I don't want him to be the top tight end on the team, though. I don't want him to be the top tight end on the team. So those are our tight ends. Let's move on to some other positions here. A lot of defenders to go through. A lot of defenders. Okay. I think there was way more defenders than offensive players. So we'll go back to the Houston football site. The link for this is in the description down below. It's free to everybody to check out. Let's go to the defensive ends / edge players. Okay. So some familiar names on here, obviously. Jadeveon Clowney's a familiar name. And then some unique and different names as well. Brian Burns, who probably won't hit true free agency, but could hit true free agency. Brian Burns from the Carolina Panthers. Chase Young, who just finished up a run to the Super Bowl with the 49ers. Josh Allen from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, again, should not see true free agency, but stranger things have happened in Jacksonville. Jadeveon Clowney, who's coming off one of his best seasons in the National Football League as sort of that one-year mercenary player. Danielle Hunter, who has been one of the most consistent under-the-radar edge defensive end guys in the National Football League for the Vikings over the past few seasons. Zadarius Smith, who played this past season for the Cleveland Browns. And Bryce Huff, who is a unique and interesting name in this list. Bryce Huff is not a guy that was highly thought of or highly touted coming into this season. And then he rattled off 10 sacks headed into free agency. And he did that without a ton of playing time. He only played 42% of the snaps on defense for the Jets this year. And he rattled off 10 sacks. So Huff is a super interesting player in free agency because the Jets feel like they should probably keep him. But he's not franchise tag worthy, so he's probably going to hit true free agency unless he gets a really good deal. He's going to be sort of that bargain player that's like, hey, he had a really good year, so we're going to have to pay a little bit more than we thought for this guy, but he's not going to cost as much as, say, Brian Burns or Josh Allen. He's probably not going to cost as much as even Chase Young because it's a one-year sample size where he's been really, really good. So this is a really intriguing defensive end edge situation. And I would tell you that every one of the names I have here, all 7 names that I have here, they go away if the Texans re-sign Jonathan Grenard. So if the Texans bring back Jonathan Grenard, then all 7 of these names are not an option anymore, in my opinion. You would bring back Grenard, there'd be some sort of heavy investment in him, and then you would go to some other defensive end edge players as sort of depth guys. Think about the fact that Jerry Hughes is a free agent. Majai Sanders is a backup, but he hasn't showcased a ton. Derek Barnett is a free agent. And you don't know what the situation is with Dylan Horton. So there's going to be some investment beyond the big names here at defensive end in the position. But if you sign Grenard, every one of these names comes off the board. I wouldn't sign any of those guys. It'd be way too much. Okay? But as far as these guys go, if Grenard's going somewhere else, Burns is a fascinating name. Josh Allen would be the guy. I think his game would translate amazing here. I feel like him and Anderson flying off the edges would just be a headache, a total headache for anybody and everybody that the Texans played. So he's probably near the top for me in the defensive ends. Burns is a bit more traditional than Allen from a defensive end standpoint. Allen's more of an edge. Burns is more defensive end. I don't worry about what position they actually play because DeMeco Ryans is a damn good coach. He'll figure it out. So amongst these guys, I probably go Allen 1, Burns 2. And then really I'm not in love with Chase Young. So I'm not a big fan of Chase Young. So I don't really want the Texans to chase that from a defensive end standpoint. Let's get to some of your comments here about the defense. Clinton's ready for some defense. Now, Grenard had a lot more production than most of the guys in the league. Yeah, he did. He did. In fact, I'm going to pull up the defensive end situation right now. And Jonathan Grenard's got the most sacks of anybody in free agency, I believe. 13 sacks for Grenard this year. And that's the tops. That's tied with Justin Madubuike. So Grenard's got the tops for the exterior linemen, and Madubuike's got the tops for the interior linemen. So Grenard's a really productive guy. You got to have a backup plan in case somebody throws the bag at him, you know? And exploring some of those names is key. Mike Bowie says, I think Chase Young would be a great addition. He would be for cheap. He'll only get a prove-it contract, which is better than paying Grenard. I do wonder if a little Super Bowl success added to the money. I would think that Chase is probably chasing, pardon the pun, a long-term deal as well. I don't know that he wants to sign a short-term prove-it deal. And somebody, because there's a dearth of pass rushers around the league. Everybody wants a good pass rusher. Someone will pay Chase Young what he wants and for the length that he wants. And it may not be exactly what he wants, but he'll get a long contract if he wants it. Brandon says, I'd bring Clowney back. He already expressed interest. It would be reasonable. Yeah, Clowney's in that stage where he's kind of coasting through the NFL and signing, anywhere from $4 to $12 million deals. And, he had one of his best sack seasons this past year, Clowney did. He's obviously a really good run stopper. I just feel like maybe the mentality, the nostalgia, you don't want him to get comfortable here. But that's, again, DeMeco Ryans. I trust DeMeco Ryans to maximize anybody and to make sure guys, aren't stepping out of line on his team and getting guys, committed and ready to rock. Kind of curious to see DeMeco get out of Clowney, and probably the cheapest out of the bunch. Yeah. JR's, thinking the same thing that I just said. I promise I didn't steal that thought from you. Texas what would a sign and trade for Brian Burns look like? A third-round pick? I would think that they're asking a first. If they franchise tag him, I would think that they're looking for a first for Brian Burns in Carolina. So that'd be my thought, and probably a first-round pick. Stealing Josh Allen away from Jacksonville would be a double whammy. Yeah, it would. It would hurt them. It would help the Texans. It would leave Jacksonville, stuck in the mud on defense, Joe Cruz. That's a great point. It's a great point. Brandon says, I'd rather get bigger. The guy from UCLA is interesting. Knicks like drafting players that fall because of injury. That guy's going top 10. That guy's going top 10. Let me pull up his name. But yeah, Latu, the 6'4" guy from UCLA, he's going top 10. So the Texans aren't going to get a shot at him. What about bringing in the Niners DC that just got fired? DeMeco connection? No. Wouldn't bring him in. Wouldn't bring him in. Just been, he's had some success, but he just got fired from a Super Bowl team. So I can't. I'm not interested. Brian says, real quick question. What do you think of Tart? Should we keep Rankins and Collins as backup? Tart couldn't get on the field much once he got here, but if the money's right and he's already got a little head start in the system, sure. I would probably not keep Sheldon Rankins. I'd go somewhere else when it comes to defensive tackles. And speaking of defensive tackles, let's go ahead and hit the list here. This is where I am. This is where I am not in love, or this is where I'm in love with spending some of the money, is what I should say here. Chris Jones from the Kansas City Chiefs, and I know he's at the parade today saying, I'm not going anywhere. Well, he's going to hit true free agency, and everybody's going to want to talk to him. So does he really not want to go anywhere? Does he really not want to be the third highest paid defensive player in all of football? Because if that's true, that's fine. You can move on to the next guy, but Jones is a absolute game changer. Absolute game changer in what he brings to the table. Justin Madubuike, the Texans, twice saw him in living color with exactly what he brings to the table. That guy's a freak, and he's going to get paid. Somebody's going to break him off a ton of cash, okay? A ton of cash, because he was awesome this year. He had 13 sacks, same as Jonathan Grenard. He led defensive tackles in sacks. He was the locomotive for that Ravens front seven. He was a freak, just an absolute monster. Somebody asked earlier, what's your realistic dream scenario? JR asked that earlier. My realistic dream scenario is one of these two fellas, Chris Jones or Justin Madubuike. Just total game changers, what they bring to the table. Jones is better. I know he's older and he's expensive. Jones is better. Madubuike is a guy that I feel like with DeMeco Ryans, the way that they operate, I could really see some impressive stuff there. Then you go through a variety of different guys. Leonard Williams has been overpaid basically his entire career, and he's coming off an expensive contract. No reason to think he's going to ask for less money. Pretty productive, got traded in the middle of the year. But I'm not in love with Leonard Williams. DJ Reader, you remember that name. That's a familiar name to Texans fans because Whitney Merciless got an unnecessary contract. The Texans couldn't bring DJ Reader back a couple of years ago. He went up to Cincinnati and sort of kicked ass for them. DJ Reader's a guy that I would think about. Javon Kinlaw, former first-round pick, former San Francisco 49er. If DeMeco Ryans felt like there was something that you could get from Javon Kinlaw, I would seriously think about Javon Kinlaw. That'd be a low-cost investment compared to some of these other guys. Christian Wilkins, Miami Dolphins, really good, a lot of personality, super entertaining when they get him mic'd up, also a really good player. Not as pass rush savvy as some of these other guys on here, but Wilkins is a really nice player. He'll also be expensive. Fletcher Cox probably is not leaving Philadelphia. If Fletcher Cox does leave Philadelphia, hits free agency, you want to put a vet with a little bit of juice to him on that defensive line and in that defensive room. I mean, Fletcher Cox is still got it. He's played a lot of football. He's played a lot of productive football. He can still go. I just don't believe that Fletcher Cox is actually getting out of Philadelphia, but if he does, I'd think about it. And Grover Stewart is another guy. You're thinking, who's Grover Stewart? Played for the Indianapolis Colts this past year, had a suspension that's going to knock down his value a little bit. So Grover Stewart, really productive for the Colts. Again, you take a guy from the Colts, helps the Texans, and the value gets knocked down a little bit because of the suspension. So there you go. Let's get to some of your comments here about the defensive tackles. Landry says, Fletcher loves DeMeco. That's Landry Locker from the Locker Room podcast, where I do my free agent of the day sign or decline with him each and every day. And if you're not following Landry, you're missing out on some fantastic content. You say you should hear him talk about him. Well, hey, if Fletcher Cox wants to leave Philadelphia, come to Papa. Come on. You can't get Chris Jones or Justin Madubuike. I mean, Fletcher Cox and Malik Collins right there in the middle. Will Anderson on the edge. Find another defensive end. That's a pretty nasty defensive line that you can work through. So I really, really like some of these defensive tackles. But Jones and Madubuike are my top guys in all of free agency. Okay? In all of free agency, those are my top guys. That's who I would spend on. I mean, Jones is 6th in sacks in the past 4 seasons. He's number two in total playoffs and regular season sacks amongst defensive tackles. He's number 1 in regular season defensive tackle sacks. So Jones is my top guy. Madubuike right below him as well. And I can't get out of my brain that DeMeco Ryans talked about that defensive line and just loves talking and hammering about that defensive line. So those are the defensive tackles. Now let's go to the linebackers. Okay, the linebackers. There's some interesting names on here. There's some guys that need to rebuild some value. There's some guys that are already valuable. It starts with Patrick Queen from Baltimore. Texans fans know him well. Queen had a really good season for the Ravens when a year ago in the offseason, we were talking about, is Patrick Queen on the outs in Baltimore? Is he going to get traded? Is he going to they're going to move on from him? I have to imagine that Queen is going to be asking for a tremendous amount of money. The Ravens already have a commitment from a financial standpoint to Roquan Smith. It doesn't seem like they could keep Patrick Queen. So I'll be interested to see exactly how that shakes out for Baltimore. I feel like Queen's hitting free agency. Devin White from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, a guy that was a high draft pick. He's made a couple of bucks already, hitting free agency. Intriguing name there. Intriguing name. I'm going to get to this guy last. Josie Jewell from the Broncos, solid, not spectacular like White can be or like Queen can be, but just a real solid guy, a tax bracket down from those other guys, if you will. Azeez Al-Shaair is a guy that's hitting free agency again. The Texans were interested a few years ago. So I wonder if they would swing back around to this guy. Jordan Brooks is coming to the end of a rookie deal with the Seahawks. So he's hitting free agency. And then I call this guy Mr. Nightmare. Frankie Louvu damn near won the Panthers the game against the Texans this past season. He was everywhere. He was all over the field. He was batting passes down. He was stuffing the run. Louvu is a monster. And I never wanted to hear his name ever again after that game. But then I'm going through all these free agent options, and he pops up, and I'm thinking to myself, he kicked the Texans' tail last year. He knocked a bunch of guys' teeth in. Maybe bringing Frankie Louvu in here would be pretty interesting. So, again, you got to find somebody that fits just right with how the Texans are running their linebacker room. Are they bringing Blake Cashman back? Is Cashman coming back as a for-sure starter? Is he coming back as sort of that fourth linebacker with some of the other starters? Obviously, you need to have an athletic guy. That's how DeMeco Ryans, it seems, wants his linebackers to shake out. How can they fit with Christian Harris in the linebacker room, who played incredible for the team down the stretch? So there's a lot of questions about linebacker. There's a lot of options beyond these guys as well. These are just the 6 that made that initial top 53 here on this list. So anybody got linebacker conversations or questions? I do want to answer this question from Ruben. Ruben asks, what's the price difference in the 2 defensive tackles? That's a good question. The spot rack price difference on them is about $8 million a year. I would tell you that the realistic number is probably about $5 million difference. So Jones somewhere in the 25 to 28 range, and Matabike somewhere in the 20 to 23 range is what I would say. So I think it's about $5 million really, because someone's going to overpay Matabike for the production that he put together this past season. I'm not trying to hear about fit for us. I'm going to take Queen if it's a decent price. Yes, sign me up, man. Sign me up. Guy got going this year. Guy got going this year. CJ had high praise for Devin on Micah Parsons' podcast. Frankie Louvu and Queen had a lot of production. Louvu might be easy to lure away from a terrible team. Look, that's a factor. If the money's right from, say, Carolina and Houston, I mean, Houston's the easy pick there. You play some worthwhile and meaningful football. Carolina's got to pay that bad team tax the Texans had to pay for all those years. Mike says, I think Devin White's perfect, and we let Perryman and Cashman go. We'd have White, Christian Harris, and To'o. White likes ranches and horses, so Texas is perfect for him. Yeah, I mean, that's not bad. That's not bad. White, and I feel like there was some stuff with White and the Buccaneers there at the end. Got to do a little bit more digging on him, and just learn a little bit more about that last little bit there in Tampa. But he's really good. Former super high investment draft pick, and really good player. Really good player. I mean, he was the 5th overall pick in 2019. So has made some good money, going to want some good money, and be interesting to see how these linebackers start to shake out. Be really interesting. All right, let's get to the cornerbacks. Corners here. I've only got 5 on here. I don't love the cornerback class. I lean towards a rookie versus a free agent opposite Derek Stingley, because Stingley is going to be expensive here in a couple of seasons. But I wouldn't hate some of these investments. So L'Jarius Sneed, obviously coming off of the run there with the Kansas City Chiefs. Jalen Johnson has been very vocal about just getting broke off and getting paid. So him with the Bears recently is an interesting one. Kendall Fuller, veteran, looking for another payday, coming off of his run with the Commies. And Stephon Gilmore out of Dallas, a little bit of an older guy. And I mean, Fuller's 29, Gilmore's 33. I would tell you that if the money was if the money was right, I probably would go ahead and just try to sign Steven Nelson over bringing Gilmore in. But it's not totally how it all works out all the time. And then Chidobe Awuzie is the final name on here. Chidobe Awuzie, coming off of a little bit of injuries bugging him in Cincinnati, but he was a pretty productive player for the Bengals. Not amazing, but would be a bargain. And if you had a veteran and a rookie and a Awuzie, you could make the cornerback situation work. So not the best cornerback situation. I don't love the investment in Jalen Johnson. Feels like it'll be too expensive. And remember, anything you give these guys in free agency, you're going to have to give more to Derek Stingley. So you're kind of setting your market here. If you spend a whole bunch of money on Sneed or Johnson or even Kendall Fuller, you're going to have to give more to Derek Stingley. So Gilmore may just be too old. And then Awuzie may just be not as productive as the number may indicate. So it's not a lot to love from this cornerback room. I mean, I'm not going to sneeze if they bring in L'Jarius Sneed, but I lean rookie over these corners. Okay, I lean rookie. He is a shutdown corner and doesn't give up big plays like Steven Nelson. All big passes were against Nelson. I would tell you that some of those were Jalen Petre's fault. I would tell you a lot of those were Jalen Petre's fault, and not as much Steven Nelson as you would think. As Sean G says, based on these options, bring back Nelson for the right price, and drafting a corner maybe in the 3rd sounds like a better option. Yeah, I would backfill the cornerback spot with a rookie at some point, be it a 1st rounder, 2nd rounder, 3rd rounder. My favorite rookie corner is Quinyon Mitchell from Tulsa. So, excuse me, Toledo or Tulsa. Now I got myself. I guess Toledo. Yeah, Toledo. I get Toledo and Tulsa mixed up. I know they're not close to each other. Mike says Nelson was there to make the tackle, so it's his fault. Not how it works. And then just 4 safeties on this list here. 4 safeties on this list. Cameron Curl, former 7th-round pick that has played himself into probably a huge contract. I mean, just a guy that has come out of nowhere. You probably didn't watch a lot of Commanders football, and when you did watch the Commanders, you probably weren't watching their secondary. You're probably watching the offense because you maybe had a fantasy football player on there. But played really well for the Commanders, and a lot of prognosticators believe he's going to get a big contract. Kyle Duggar is more of a hybrid guy. So that's a guy that I'm not thinking is a super big investment. But if you feel committed to keeping Petrie and Jimmy Ward at safety, Duggar is that sort of hybrid guy to come in and get nasty a little bit. Maybe. Geno Stone is going to be the most interceptions of anybody in free agency. He had 7 this year for the Baltimore Ravens. And so he's been a pretty solid and productive player in the NFL. 7 interceptions for the Ravens is a pretty nice number. And then this is a name that, he really should be a Texan already. But Bill O'Brien screwed up the draft in 2020. And the 2 players that I really liked was at 40 for the Texans was Jonathan Taylor and Antoine Winfield Jr. And they took Ross Blacklock, and Taylor's amazing and Antoine Winfield's amazing. Winfield is going to be expensive. Okay. He's going to be expensive. He's very good. He is very good. He would send, I would think that they would probably just move Petrie down the depth chart and play Winfield with Ward and have Petrie sort of be a fill-in guy. He's really good. Hell, maybe you move on from Petrie or Ward so that you can have Antoine Winfield on the field. He's really good. Okay. He's up there in sort of that dream scenario where I don't know that it makes the most sense to go and get him and make the investment because he's going to be expensive, but it's not the craziest thing to do with your free agency and with your money if you're the Houston Texans. And Joe Blue brings up the name. The contract is going to be very similar to Jesse Bates. And if you remember Jesse Bates last year, Bates got a big deal. 4 years, $64 million, 36 guaranteed, $18 million in a signing bonus. So that's kind of what you're looking at for Antoine Winfield. Basically. They're estimating $18 million a year for Antoine Winfield at spot rack. Really expensive for the safety spot, but he is damn good, man. He fixes a lot of mistakes for the other 10 guys on the field. And that is certainly a guy that I would consider and think long and hard about if I was Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans. They had some pretty good safety play while D'Amico was there in San Francisco. That was cheap safety play, though. I do wonder if they'd make that type of investment. So, Duggar's kind of a linebacker type. Stone, the interceptions maybe could be misleading because Matabike and Clowney and Van Noy and all those other guys were causing havoc. I'm staying totally away from this guy. Just, feels like a flash in the pan that won't, be worth the big contract. So, all right, those are the 53. Those are the 53 free agents, the top 53 free agents that the Texans need to target. Now, there's more. And again, as I said at the beginning, there is more at every one of those positions. And some of those guys require a much larger investment. Some of those guys are immediate starters. Some of those guys are rotational guys. And as those guys kind of get signed or don't leave their teams, other guys step up and take over on the list as well. So Xavier McKinney was very close to making the list. very close to making the list. I would tell you that he was real close, and he's probably one of the first names I'm throwing back up on there. Very close to making the list. Throw any of your questions my way if you want them. We'll do a little housekeeping while you guys fire up the questions. BetUS is the official sportsbook partner of the channel. Check out BetUS. The link in the description down below is where you can sign up, deposit at least $50, and get gambling on whatever you would like to start gambling on. Of course, March Madness is right around the corner. Look, Michael Vick uses it. Don't you want to gamble at the same sportsbook that Michael Vick gambles at? They got the sportsbook. They can get into live betting. You don't have to mess with the casino, but every now and then playing a little dollar blackjack ain't a bad deal. And 30th year running, America's favorite sportsbook, where the games begin. BetUS. Use the link in the description down below to get signed up. All right, questions. If you guys got anything, fire away, and I will answer as best I can. Joe Blue asked earlier if you could only pick one free agent, which would be your dream scenario. I hope I answered that with the other question, and it's Chris Jones. It's Chris Jones. So that's my dream guy for free agency. That's not my dream. Never mind. You know what I mean. All right, couple more here. Questions. Are you going to Detroit for the draft? I am not. I'm not going to Detroit for the draft. I'm sure the Texans will do something here. So night one, probably at the party if there's a party. If there's not a party, like a big get-together or a gathering or an event, if there's not one of those, then maybe at the stadium, so you talk to the player on the phone, ask them the important questions there, and then they'll have the presser the next day at the stadium, and then 2 and 3, maybe we do a little live stream for 2 and 3. I don't know. We're trying to figure out the draft plans a little bit. Mr. Heisenberg, so is it running back, defensive tackle, or safety in free agency? To me, top offensive priorities, running back, top defensive priorities, one of these defensive tackles. And then right below defensive tackle is defensive end. So running back and then the defensive line is kind of my two priorities here in free agency for the Texans. Who do you think will be the Texans starting running back week 1? Saquon Barkley. I'm going to will it into existence. What do you think we need to do about backup QB just in case CJ misses time again? Case Keenum, Davis Mills, and Tim Boyle. 3 guys fighting for 2 spots. What do you think about Stephon Diggs if he gets released? I don't believe Diggs will get released. I think that's financially tough for the Buffalo Bills to do. I do believe they're going to try to trade Stephon Diggs, and I want nothing to do with Stephon Diggs. I don't – that he doesn't feel like the type of locker room guy that you want to bring in there. It's not. Sean G said, I missed the linebackers list. Was Greenlaw from San Fran on that list? If so, would Nick Miko consider, even though he has the injury? He was not on the list. I erred when I tweeted the other day that he was a free agent coming up. I read the site wrong. He's not a free agent until the end of next year, unfortunately. But I would very much like Dre Greenlaw in the Texans uniform. So few good options at running back, though. I had 9 of them. There were 9 good options. What are you talking about? So few options. I had 9 good running back options. Name the guys that Nick will most likely get. I mean, I think it's tough to say, oh, well, Nick Caserio did this, so this is how he's going to operate, because DeMeco Ryans has a heavy say in what they do. And so it's kind of D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly everything that they love and they like. I know they liked the Senior Bowl a lot last year, and that's why I was there covering the Senior Bowl in person. One of only 3 people that cover the Texans to cover the Senior Bowl. I was there, taking it in. That the draft starts in Mobile, as the slogan says. I think the Texans can pass on Keon Coleman or Brian Thomas Jr. if they are on the board in the draft. I think you mean can't pass. Keon Coleman's a really interesting guy because the stats aren't there compared to the other wide receivers. But he's a freak. So just figure out how to use him. And then Brian Thomas Jr., really productive guy from LSU. Really productive guy. I agree about the position as far as dream scenario. DTFA is, to me, crucial. Yeah, I would love that. I would love that. How will they unveil the new uniforms during draft week? Will they do some kind of pep rally party or something? I would think so. I would think that they're going to do that for sure. They don't want that to take too much away from the draft. So having a party a couple days before and showing it off, maybe even the week before. Certainly, as I find out about that, I will do my best to relay that information to you. So be following on the Twitter. That's probably something that gets on Twitter first. But do you really trust those 3 guys to back up CJ and win us games? I don't think CJ's getting hurt again. I mean, most teams are screwed when their guy goes down. You know, if a guy goes down for a long time, you don't ever have a backup that's worth something. Can Keenum win you 2 games in a month span? Can Mills or Boyle do that? You know, probably not. But CJ's pretty durable. I don't like to plan for injury at the quarterback spot. Excuse me. Keenan Allen, if he gets released, sign me up. Heck yeah, sign me up. Talk about inside-outside versatility. I don't believe he's getting released, though, because I bet you Harbaugh wants to turn that thing into a winner as fast as possible. You know, as fast as possible. He won double-digit games his first year in San Francisco. So I got to imagine he wants that thing to be raring and roaring to go. You think the Texans are more likely to trade up or trade back this year? I could see them trading back if maybe some of the guys that they don't like or that they like are off the board and they feel like, hey, we can go from where we are to the last little bit of the round. Like, for instance, they're at 23. If Kansas City loves a wide receiver, 23 to 32, pick up a second or pick up a third. Yeah, I'm in. The Texans currently have 23, 59, and 86. And then they have 123 as well, which 123 is in the latter part of the 4th round. And remember, they've got Philadelphia's pick. That's Philadelphia's pick in the 3rd round. So actually, that's ahead of what the pick that they sent to Arizona. 59's a late 2nd, and then obviously the late 1st. So not a lot of, changing around. They got 2 4th-round picks within a couple of picks of each other. So there's a lot of moving and shaking coming in this draft. I get a hunch that Caserio is going to be dealing and going to be busy. DeAndre asks, who do you think will be playing opposite Derek Stingley at corner? I believe a rookie will be playing opposite Derek Stingley at corner. I don't know which rookie just yet, but I believe a rookie will be playing opposite Derek Stingley. I would think that it's probably heavy towards defenders with a nod to some of these wide receivers being really good. A lot of corners, man. A lot of corners in this draft. Terrion Arnold from Alabama. Quinyon Mitchell, we've talked about him. Nate Wiggins. Cooper DeJean. Kool-Aid McKinstry. Field Yates mocked Ennis Rakestraw from Missouri to the Texans. Kamari Lassiter is a nice player coming out of Georgia. Kalen King is a guy that they talked to at the Senior Bowl, who is a solid player. Cam Hart, who is a corner from Notre Dame, who's a top 100 guy. DJ James, who is, probably as heavy as one of my thighs, but long and mean and tough. He was good at the Senior Bowl. So I would think a lot of corners with some wideouts sprinkled in. Where's Jonathan Brooks projected to go? I'm big on him even after the injury. The tough part about Brooks is he's not going to help you as much this year. He is a lot of people's top running back. And I would think that because of the injury, late second, early third, maybe a luxury pick for a team that has an additional mid-round, or additional second-day pick. When he gets healthy, he's going to be really nice. But I can't see the Texans being too interested in him with the necessity to have guys right away. If we get our DT, running back, and cornerback in free agency, doesn't it make the most sense to draft a wide receiver in the first? We had so many drives stall. People really think we just rely on Nico and Tank. Schedule is harder next year. Yeah, if you get the tackle, end, running back, and corner squared away from free agency or a trade or something like that, then yeah, go get a wide receiver. Go get my guy Troy Franklin from Oregon. Or go get Brian Thomas Jr. or Keon Coleman. Or in the second round, you go get Ladd McConkey or Mitchell from Texas. So there's a bunch of different options at the wide receiver spot. They should do the new unis before free agency. I wish they were too. I want to see what these things are about. How much do you think Caserio realistically spend? Probably less than we all want him to. But he got some. He made the money work. He stretched it out last year, but probably less than we want him to. Yeah, there's a Troy Franklin fan. I'd let Stroud pick who he wants to throw to. He made a great choice in Dell. I don't know. That's exactly how they want to do things. Cody, I can see us trading back in the draft. Nick Caserio has some tricks up his sleeve. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, Brownlee's a name that was real productive at the Senior Bowl. So people like him a lot. It's a name to keep an eye on. I'm high on Johnny Wilson. Don't be. Don't be. Johnny Wilson was a rough watch at the Senior Bowl. That guy's got project written all over him. It's I don't think it's there. I don't think it's there. Are you out on Dameon Pierce? It could be nice on special teams. I kind of am. It's not going to be expensive to move on from him. If you could get a mid-round pick or a late-round pick for him, or you feel like you can find a player that has fallen out of favor for another team and you could swap them, I would do that with Pierce. King Young. Jalen Polk, yeah, out of Washington. Nice player. A lot of wide receivers in this draft, man. There's a lot of guys that I like at the wide receiver spot. There's a lot more guys that I like than don't like at wide receiver. Obviously, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, incredible. I like all those guys. Thomas Jr. from LSU's a thumbs up. Keon Coleman's a thumbs up from Florida State. Troy Franklin from Oregon's a thumbs up. Adonai Mitchell's from Texas a thumbs up. Ladd McConkey's a thumbs up. Xavier Worthy's a thumbs down for me. Xavier Leggett from South Carolina, probably a thumbs sideways. Jalen Polk from Washington, thumbs sideways but leaning up. Roman Wilson from Michigan, thumbs up. Ricky Purcell from Florida, thumbs up. Tez Walker, thumbs down on him. And Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky, thumbs up on him. So lot of good wide receivers, man. A lot of good wide receivers. Somebody just asked about Alvin Kamara. I'm Googling to see if the Saints can make that work. Can you see a trade with the Saints for Alvin Kamara? Not really, because the Saints don't actually save any money by doing that. They only save $1 million by doing it, unless he restructured his contract in a really big way to take a lot less money, and they were able to try. I mean, maybe Camaro would do that. I mean, but I don't know. Roman Wilson's a guy that I love. I mean, he was incredible at the Senior Bowl. If he runs a 4.3 at the combine, people are going to be freaking out. They're going to be putting him in the late first. Roman Wilson's a real nice player. Brent asks, are you going to the combine in a couple of weeks? You bet I am. I will be in Indianapolis in living color, have my ear to the ground. I'll be talking to prospects, be talking to other draft people, be a ton of content coming your way from Indianapolis. That is going to be so much fun. I love the combines. I got to go in 2019. It was one of the most fun things I've ever done in my entire career. I love the Indianapolis Scouting Combine. Juwan Jennings from San Fran's a no-brainer to me. Great pass blocker. Be great with CJ. I would love Juwan Jennings here, man. He didn't make the top 53, but that's a free agent wide receiver that I would love to see end up in the Texans. Is Fairbairn a free agent? Are we getting him back? Top completion percentage of the season? Yes, he is a free agent. I don't know if they're going to bring him back. I would think that they're probably trying to bring him back. It's really hard to switch kickers. It's really hard. With so much depth, the wide receiver position is in this draft. What round would you feel is best? Take a wide receiver if the top guys are gone. 2. Roman Wilson or Ladd McConkey in the second round. That's my hope right now. Cooper DeJean from Iowa, freak athlete. Gonna test out of this world at the combine. Really excited to talk to him. People are gonna downplay him because he's a white cornerback. Just because he's pigmentally challenged doesn't mean that he can't play ball, because he can play ball. Man, he's good. Do you have any inside information on the new unis? I know there's 4 new uniforms. Something modernish, H-Town blue, red is my speculation on the 4th one, and then something close to what they have now is kind of my understanding of what they've put together. So that's all I got for you on the uniforms. I don't know if they're going to use an alternate logo, and I believe, no one's told me this, but I believe the red helmets will be the primary helmet. Let's finish up with this one. Dream offseason scenario. Okay, let's see if I can effectively do this here. Chris Jones as a free agent, and Luvu as a free agent at linebacker. That's probably most of the money. No, take that back. Chris Jones at tackle, at defensive tackle as free agent. Saquon Barkley as a free agent. Fill in a couple other things. And then the draft, Quinyon Mitchell at 23. Ladd McConkey in the second round. And I don't know, like a defensive end or a defensive tackle in the third round. What say you? You like that? That dreamy enough? That dreamy enough? Okay. Houston football. The 53 top free agents are available on Houston football right now for free. The link's in the description down below. That'll get updated as guys get franchise tagged, re-signed, stuff like that. So check that out in the description. The BetUS link is in the description. Check out BetUS. Great spot to do your wagering if you'd like to do your wagering. Check out Houston football in general. Lots of written content on there. Always putting new stuff on there. Sometimes you'll get stuff there before you get it on YouTube. So check that out. Comment section's great. If you want to put guys on my radar from free agency or draft, I'll pay attention. I'll chase those guys down from a interest standpoint and stuff like that. Draft is going to be tough because I can't sit here and break down film. I'm not a film guy. I don't get the film. I don't see the film, but I'll go watch a guy play, give you my opinion, and listen to the experts about him and talk to experts about him as well. Somebody asked a really good question. Cody, you ever thought about doing a draft simulator? My friend, I would tell you to keep your eyes peeled for Friday. Keep your eyes peeled for Friday. Let's see here. All right. That will do it for the stream tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate everybody getting in here live. The free agent of the day, sign or decline. The free agent of the day, sign or decline, for tomorrow will be up at noon. It's Chris Jones. You don't want to miss it. You do not want to miss it. Working on putting that together, having that up for noon. So it'll be there at noon. Landry and I will break down Chris Jones. Should the Texans sign him? Should the Texans pass on him in free agency? You don't want to miss that one. Landry and I are doing a free agent of the day, sign or decline. You don't want to miss out on those. All the regular content still coming to the channel as well. Plenty of fun stuff to get to. Don't miss any of it. Thank you, everybody. Hope you had a fantastic Valentine's Day. If you didn't, it'll be better because free agency is almost here and football makes everything better. I finish all the live streams the same way. It's my hope for you. It's my charge to you as well. I want you to eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thank you, everybody.